Okay, so you guys are going to have to bear with me on the audio. This is the first time I've ever done any sort of voiceover for my videos, so I'll just get right into it. I am designing for the first time a miter saw station for a brand new miter saw. I've never owned a new miter saw, I've only had hand-me-downs, but I've owned 5 different miter saws. So this is the design that I've come up with. It's taken a lot of inspiration from a few different designs I've seen online. Most notably is going to be Ron Polk's design for his trailer, and that's because he doesn't use any drawer slides or hardware in his drawers. They're built with the bottoms being oversized, and they slide on dados that he routes into the side of the plywood. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do here and keep the cost of the project down. So yeah, this is me building the jig for that router so I can route those dados in the cabinetry carcasses, making sure everything stays nice and square as I go. And I'm just using 2P10 CA glue here and brad nailer, little spacer jig that's the right size for the router guide bushing. Okay, so what you're about to see here is I'm going to pause, and that's because those rails in the plunge router aren't square, and it caused the router bit to catch on the inside of the bushing, and it ripped the bushing right out of the router. So I had to go and upgrade the router, got this nice DeWalt, and from that point on I did not have any issues whatsoever. So like they say, you get what you pay for. Here is the completed panel, and here are the plans for the drawers. There's a lot of parts. Now I don't have any video of me cutting those, so here are just some still frame photos of all of the parts after I cut them. It took quite a while. And while I was cutting them, I found this little guy hanging out on one of the pieces, and I decided to take a picture of him. So here's how the drawer or cabinet carcasses fit inside of that jig that I just made. They just slide right in, and then a couple of screws hold it down. And so I can start routing that out here. And I took that in multiple passes, 3 passes for each dado, as you'll see here in this video. This wasn't an upcut or a downcut bit, that's just a straight flush trim bit, so I had to take it very slow. The video sped up. But it all worked out in the end, no problems, no burning or anything like that. Okay, so I got all of the cabinets routed out at this point. Didn't think I needed to show that entire process, it was all the same. And now I'm going through and assembling the carcasses. I'm doing that with just some 2P10 or CA glue, some brad nails, and once I have those held in place, I go back and use some cabinet trim head screws to hold everything together. I use wood glue in a few places where I think there's going to be a lot of stresses and force on the cabinet, but for the most part it's just screws and a little bit of CA glue. Those are the 5 carcasses, all put together and assembled. And now I have to start cleaning up the area that the cabinets are going to go in. They're going to go along this wall, and I also go through and take out or switch 2 of those OSB wall panels because of where the hole is for the electrical that runs behind it. You're going to see in a second what's behind my walls, which is a black plastic sheet. My shop is butted up against a chain link fence, and so I had to kind of make this temporary because I am in a rental location. I've gone ahead and cut out this notch here, which you'll see in just a second, has to fit over the footing of one of the steel posts that holds up my upper deck right there. So now it fits. These cabinets I went back and forth and shimmed and leveled multiple times. First one at a time in relation to the next, and then all together. Here I just have to remove an electrical outlet that I had sitting there. All safe, power's off, and just took that out of the wall. Alright, here's some more carcasses going in. Like I said, lots of shimming, leveling. You know how it is. So I'm continuing to level and square, and while I was down here working in the shop, my kids decided to come down and hang out with Dad for just a minute and see what I was doing and help out. My wife joined in for a second there. So I'm doing some more leveling, making sure things are square, things like that. My wall is very out of square, so that was time consuming. There's a picture of the carcasses finished, and you'll see in this next photo that I actually ran 2 string lines, one for level and one to make sure that the front faces were all in the same plane. So now I'm switching over to start assembly of the drawers. Same type of construction as the carcasses, just some 2p10 to hold the sides to the back. And you'll see that I kind of copied a little bit of Ron Polk's design for his drawers, which is I just oversized the bottom of the drawer, and that's going to ride in those dados that I routed out of the carcasses. Everything's held together with some trim screws and brad nails. That way if I need to take them apart in the future, I can easily do that. So after doing this, I added some 1/8 inch roundovers to all the edges and sanded, added some paste wax to make it smooth, and you should listen to this next bit of audio. It's pretty funny. Oh, God. Yeah, so we all have those moments. That was pretty embarrassing. But anyways, I went through, sanded where I thought it might be catching, anywhere that I thought it could catch. Even after doing that and reapplying some paste wax, it still wasn't working all that well. So I ended up using my hand plane on the backs of the drawers just a little bit, just to take it down. And this was one of those times that I ended up taking the cabinet carcasses back apart again and making sure everything was coming out square and level and plumb, because that was throwing it out of alignment. After I did that, though, it all worked out. I got the drawers to slide fairly smoothly in the end. And here are those cabinet carcasses with the drawers in. I don't have all the fronts on. Just wanted to get those drawers in there. This is me adding the fronts. I splurged on the fronts. I went with the nice maple plywood and grain matched all the fronts because, you know, why not? So those went on pretty smooth, without any issues. I got those on, yeah. So here's some photos of those. They're not all perfectly in line, but that's okay. They're shop cabinets. They're just slightly out of alignment by maybe a 32nd of an inch in various ways. Here I'm putting on the top, and you can't tell in the video, but that back wall has a really bad curve in it. It's really not straight. So what I'm doing is I'm just measuring the fronts, making sure that all the fronts are nice and square, straight across. And then I'm going to take my compass there and scribe the back edge of the countertop against the wall so that I can cut that and make it flush to the wall. So I went ahead and I used my jigsaw to cut that line flush. Jigsaw is not well known for its very straight and accurate lines, so I ended up coming back using my hand plane and kind of smoothing out those lines, feathering it towards that line that I scribed. And that worked really well, actually. Got the line nice and smooth, just sanded over the edges and things like that. And here I am flipping the board over and checking that against the wall. And I purposely left it proud on the front edge so that I could flush trim that in a second. You'll see. I started to trim the top edge, the final countertop, to the bottom size countertop. There was a lot of material on there, so I had to use that circular saw to trim it off. And then I trimmed those together so that they matched each other. I went through and created this grid on the bottom sides and used a mix of brad nails, trim screws, and torque screws to hold the two layers of countertop together. There's no glue in there. I just didn't want to have to deal with all that glue. And this worked really well. It came out very flat. Don't have any real issues in there. And I have a quick photo of what those look like now. You can see the front edge is not flush because I changed out to this much larger bit. That's a 1 1/4 on the right and a 2 1/2, I believe, on the left, or it might be a 2 1/4 on the left. And that bit made quick work of 2 layers of 3/4 inch plywood without any issues whatsoever, especially in that DeWalt router. It was a fantastic router. Sanded those edges flush and it worked really nice. I had to take the countertops back off because that back edge where the router can't get all the way to the wall, I just used the hand plane again. So you can tell I'm going to have 2 layers of exposed end grain plywood all the way around, and that just won't do, especially with this nice maple fronts. So what better to use than some unnecessary walnut? I went and got some walnut from the lumber supply, and it was better cost than the maple edge banding that I was going to use. So just went ahead and used walnut, and I really like how it turned out. I think it really pops against that maple. So I'm just wiping that down, and here's what it looks like. There's no finish on the walnut yet, as you can tell. That's just the plain walnut. I went ahead and filled all of those holes with screws. I used some walnut wood filler, the dust wood glue technique, and dark walnut, and it came out pretty nice. You can see it drying right there. Obviously, got to have some T-track in your miter saw station. What good would be building all of this if you didn't have a nice stop block with your T-track? It's a very large box for a little piece of T-track. Okay, over here I'm cutting up some more walnut that I'm going to end up using for the drawer handles. I was really going back and forth on how to make these drawer handles. I didn't want to buy anything. It was just going to cost too much for 22 drawer handles. So got a good price on the walnut and decided I'm going to use that. So I ripped each piece down to equal 3 parts to get all the drawer fronts I needed. I actually have 2 extras, so if I damage any, I can make 2 more. And my shop was a huge mess after this. You'll see a picture in a little bit. So what I did is I used just a cove bit or a round over bit, I guess. I call it a cove bit. In my homemade router bench, I used the stomp block and just plunged into the bottom side of that walnut, taking it in 2 passes to get to full depth because I didn't want to hog out too much material at once. As you can see, I'm wearing my respirator because this kicked up a lot of dust, even with my dust collector. And you'll see a picture of that here. That's my shop after all of that routing. It's very messy. That's what the bottom sides of the handles look like. I thought they came out pretty nice. By this point, my new miter saw had shown up, so I got pretty excited and decided to open that up and pull it out. Wanted to take a look. As you can see, I got the Bosch Axial Glide. This is the 10-inch version, and I was pretty happy about that. I put a little bit of dark walnut stain on the handles to try and draw out that grain, and it came out okay. I kind of liked it. Sanded that smooth after the first coat. I only put 1 coat. I didn't want to darken it too much. So just put 1 light coat on and sanded that. After sanding that, I wiped it down with just a damp cloth to take off any loose dust or debris. And then I applied a coat of tung oil, and I was pretty upset with myself after this because I just applied that tung oil way too thick, and I had meant to wipe it down immediately after putting it on, and I just got completely distracted with something else and walked away from it, and it just came out way too thick. Okay, so I didn't get any footage of me installing the handles, but here are some photos of me getting them installed. Everything came out really good. There's a couple of coats of tung oil on there. I've installed the T-track and a stop block, and I'll give you guys a walk around so you can see it. Okay, so I've got the miter saw station complete. I'm going to turn the camera around and give you guys a tour of how it came out. Okay, so here it is, all completed. There's of course always little things that I'd like to get done, but it worked out. So I don't have any really good organization systems set up for these drawers right now, but these top drawers here just hold a few odds and end bits that I need at hand right off the bat. As you can see, I've got that T-track installed. I put it in both sides, and I've got some nice metal ruler tape put down on top of there. Nice little magnet board back there. Down here below, all of these drawers are already full except for these 2 right here. The drawers measure 9 inches, 6 inches, 3 inches. And I've got some stuff in almost all of them. Tape. This one over here has sandpaper. I got to come up with some good sandpaper organization, but looking forward to that. Let's move down. Part of the initial plan here was to put a nice shelf in here for vacuum, for dust collecting for the saw. Haven't gotten around to do that, and I really like having the wood scrap bin down there, so not sure when I'll get to that. As you can see, I've been using it, so it's a little dirty. I went ahead and put nice walnut front on here as well. Really like how this one came out. Looks really nice. So yeah, the saw, I love this thing. It's a great saw. A lot better than all the other saws I've had. Upgrades I'm going to do to the saw. Obviously I'll put a 0 clearance insert in here. I'm thinking about upgrading the dust shoe and hooking up a vacuum hose for dust collection. I'll also be updating the blade. This is still the Bosch
blade that comes with the saw. Thinking about putting a nice spider on there. So I'm gonna update that. So yeah, dust shoe almost for sure though, because any of you out there know the dust collection on this saw is terrible. But yeah, so I'll update that. Handles all came out really nice. There's some of my scrap. And I still have quite a few empty drawers in here. So got a good amount in there. There's my stop block. That's how I made it. Just took a little scrap piece of my walnut, ran nice one of those like toilet bowl bolts through it, and ran it up, and it works great. Works really good. Slides nice and smooth. Down here on the end, basically all of these for the most part are router bits. You guys will hate me for this, but this is gonna get organized, I promised. It's just a total cluster mess of router parts, but my intention for this drawer will eventually be all nice router bit storage, and then coming down we'll have router accessories right below that. Right now this one has a few other tools, angle grinder and whatnot, and then my routers are all down in here. So yeah, that came out really nice. So all in all, guys, I think it really came out nice. Really kind of adds to the shop, the detail of it. I'm excited to really use it, fill up the drawers, and make a lot of good storage and organization. In the future, still quite a ways off, but in the future, the next plan is to build somewhat matching cabinets, overhead cabinets, above this station for storage of larger items, like stuff that I have up here, these larger tool totes and bins and buckets and all this stuff. So I would like to have that all up in here, in those cabinets up there, and I will probably trim those cabinet doors in walnut again to match, because why not? The TV will get moved, and that'll probably get moved over to this wall somewhere. I'll probably make a hanging frame or something for it over here. Okay guys, so if you like this video, like the project, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. Please share, if you will, that'd be great. And also consider following me over on Instagram if you're not already following me over there. I post more up-to-date photos and things like that over there, and I'd really like to gain a following and enjoy sharing my projects and photos with all of you guys and talking to you guys online. So thanks for sticking around. I really appreciate it. Take care.